She was already at the door. Her hand was on the handle. Her bag was on her shoulder. She had 4 minutes before she needed to be back in her van. 4 minutes, and this delivery was done, and she would drive to the next one, and the next one, and the day would keep moving the way she needed it to keep moving forward, always forward, no stopping. His hand closed around her wrist. Not rough, not threatening. The grip of a man who had made a decision in the space between one heartbeat and the next firm, certainly stopping her completely without pulling her back even a single inch. Iris' veil went still. Damien Cross was 36 years old and ran the kind of organization that did not appear in public filings or newspaper profiles. He wore suits that were not ostentatious because he did not need them to be. He moved through his building with the particular authority of a man who had built something significant before he was 30 and had been quietly, methodically expanding it since. He had not touched her in the 4 months she had been delivering flowers to his building. He had barely spoken to her. He had been, in every interaction they had, the precise professional distance of a man who understood that the florist who came on Tuesdays and Fridays was there for a service and not a conversation. He was also, though she had not known this until now, the kind of man who noticed everything, and who, when he saw something that required a response, responded without hesitation. And now his hand was around her wrist. And he was looking at what his hand had revealed. Her sleeve had ridden up when she reached for the door handle 2 inches. No more. Enough. Enough to show the thin silver lines that ran along her inner forearm, old scars, years old, pale and long settled. And sitting directly over the oldest one, something new. A bruise. Deep at the center, for days old at most. New damage laid over old healing. Damien Cross looked at it. Not at the scars alone. Not at the bruise alone. At both. At the specific, terrible fact of what both together meant. The lobby was empty. The Tuesday morning light came through the glass doors behind her. The city outside was already in motion: taxis, commuters, the ordinary machinery of a morning that had no idea what was happening inside this glass lobby. Neither of them moved. Iris. Just her name. But the way he said it quietly, as though the word itself required handling carefully, made the lobby feel very small and very still. Throat closing. I'm fine. His hand did not move. Looking at her wrist. At the scars he had not seen in 4 months of Tuesday and Friday mornings. At the bruise sitting over them like a signature. I'm fine. The automatic version. The one she had been giving to everyone for 4 days. The one that had become so rehearsed it came out before she could decide whether she meant it. Up from her wrist to her face. And whatever he saw there. Not the scars, not the bruise, but her face. The specific expression of someone who has been holding themselves together through sheer will for 4 straight days made something in his expression go very still. He let go of her wrist, but he stepped between her and the door. For months delivering to Harlow Tower. The account was a good one: weekly arrangements for the lobby, bi-weekly for the executive floor, a standing order that represented a significant portion of Iris Bloom's monthly revenue, which was the name of the florist shop she had opened 2 years ago on a corner on Alderton Street with savings she had been accumulating since she was 23 and a dream she had been tending since she was considerably younger. The shop was hers. This was the thing she came back to on difficult mornings, the thing she returned to the way you returned to something fixed when everything else was shifting. The shop was hers. The accounts were building. The work was good. Everything else was being managed. She was good at managing things. She had been good at managing things for a long time, the practical competence of someone who had learned early that if she did not handle her own life, it would handle her, and she preferred the former. She had managed her mother's illness and the shop's early difficult months, and the relationship that had seemed, for 2 years, like it might be a good thing and had turned out to be the opposite of a good thing in ways that had taken her longer than she wanted to admit to understand. That too being managed. The bruises were from last Thursday, the last time she had tried to leave. Friday morning. A bag, a resolution, 3 months of quietly preparing. Not going back. 4 days of keeping herself together. She had not expected Damien Cross to grab her wrist in a lobby on a Tuesday morning. Not expected anyone to notice. Damien Cross noticed everything about the people who moved through his building. This was not particular to Iris. It was the specific attentiveness of a man who had learned that information was the basis of every decision he made, and who applied this to the world around him as a matter of habit. What was particular to Iris was what he decided to do with what he noticed. He stepped back. "Come upstairs." Iris looked at him, at the man who had received her flower deliveries for 4 months with the efficient nod of someone processing a logistics transaction, who had occasionally been in the lobby when she arrived and had exchanged perhaps 30 words with her in all that time, who was now standing between her and the door of his own building at 7:40 in the morning. "Mr. Cross." "Damien." He held the door. "Come upstairs." "My office." 10 minutes. "I have another delivery." "I know. Anderson Building, 9 o'clock. You have time." Not pressuring, simply steady. The specific steadiness of a man who had made a decision and was not going to unmake it. 10 minutes. The door behind him. Her wrist. The sleeve still ridden up. The scars and the bruise both visible, not covered. Looking at him one more moment. 10 minutes. He moved aside. To the elevator. He followed, not crowding, simply present. The way he moved through his own building with the particular authority of someone who belonged completely in every space they occupied. The elevator opened on the executive floor. His office was at the end of the corridor, large windows, the city below in the Tuesday morning light. He gestured to the seating area near the window, not his desk, the seating area, the part of the room that was for conversations rather than transactions. Saturday. To the side table, back with a glass of water set in front of her without comment. He sat across from her. "Last Thursday." "How do you know it was Thursday?" "Because Friday morning you arrived with a delivery bag and a different energy. And because what I saw this morning tells me exactly what the last 4 days have looked like." A pause. "I noticed things." "You're a florist's client? You're not supposed to notice things about the florist." "I notice things about everyone. I have been noticing things about you for 4 months and choosing not to act on most of them." He held her gaze. "Today I acted on one." Iris looked at the glass of water, at the city beyond the window, at her wrist where the sleeve had fallen back into place. "I left Friday morning. I'm not going back." "I know. You can't know that." "I know because you came in today with the specific posture of someone who has made a decision they're committed to. You're not uncertain. You're managing." A pause. "Those are different things." Straightening. "What do you want, Damien?" A moment of quiet. The specific quiet of a man who had prepared for several versions of this conversation and was choosing between them. "I want to know if you're safe." Not managed. Safe. The difference was that she knew what it was. 4 days of managing. The practical work of someone who had left and was now handling the practical consequences of leaving. The apartment she was staying in, her friend's place, the specific logistics of not going back. The shop, which she had opened every morning on schedule because the shop was hers and she was not going to let anything take that from her. Safe was a different question. "I'm getting there." The specific nod of someone receiving information rather than responding to it. The delivery account. Does he know about it? The question was clear. Whether the person she had left knew her schedule. Whether Tuesday and Friday deliveries to Harlow Tower were a predictable pattern that could be used. "He knows I have accounts in this area." Not which ones. Damien leaned forward slightly. "If that changes, I need you to tell me." "Why?" The same direct precision she had been receiving for 4 months across lobby transactions, directed at her like this for the first time. "Because you have been coming into my building twice a week for 4 months and you are a person I would like to not have something happen to." The office was very quiet. That's a very specific thing to say to a florist. "Yes. It is." The window, the city below going about its Tuesday, is entirely indifferent to this conversation. For months of lobby nods and 30 words of professional exchange and a man who had been noticing things and choosing not to act on most of them. "Okay." She met his eyes. "If it changes, I'll tell you. I'll let you get to your next delivery." Bag on her shoulder. At the door of his office she paused. Damien, looking at her. "The water." She paused at the door. "Thank you." "You're welcome." To the elevator. He stood in the doorway of his office and watched the elevator doors close and understood, with the specific clarity of a man who processed information efficiently, that 10 minutes had not been enough and that he had been correct to know it would not be enough and that this was nevertheless the right amount for today. There was a Tuesday next week. He would have more time. Iris walked out of Harlow Tower Tuesday morning and went to the Anderson building and arranged 20 white lilies in the lobby with the focused attention of someone doing the next necessary thing. She thought about the water. She thought about 4 months of Tuesday and Friday deliveries and a man who had seen what she had been hiding and had stepped between her and the door. She thought, nobody has ever noticed that precisely before. She thought, I don't know what to do with that. The following Tuesday she arrived at Harlow Tower at her usual time. The lobby was empty except for the security desk. She signed in, delivered the lobby arrangement, and went to the elevator for the executive floor order. Damien was in the corridor when she stepped out. Not waiting or not obviously waiting. He was moving between offices, a folder in his hand, the specific motion of a man with a morning full of things to do. He stopped when he saw her. Iris. Damien. They stood in the corridor for a moment. How are you? Not the automatic social version. The actual question. Better than last Tuesday. The executive arrangement, I've put it in the boardroom this week instead of the corridor. More light in there. The boardroom faces south. Yes. South light is better for whatever you brought today. White ranunculus had not told him this, and the south light was in fact significantly better for white flowers than the east-facing corridor. You know about flowers. I know about light, and I paid attention to what you bring into the boardroom together. She arranged the flowers in the specific way that made the most of the south-facing windows. He stood near the door, not crowding, simply there. Is the apartment working? She had told him nothing about the apartment. How do you mentioned a friend's place. Last Tuesday. Briefly. One sentence in the context of explaining why she was managing. She had not thought he had registered it specifically. It's fine. Temporary. Are you looking for something permanent? When things settle. I have a property manager if you want a referral. Someone who can move quickly and is discreet about the tenant's history. She stopped arranging and turned to look at him. At the door, folder still in hand, the specific composure of a man who had offered something practical and was prepared to have it declined without taking it personally. You do that. Voice even. I've already spoken to him. Tentatively. Nothing is arranged. But if you want it, it's available. Looking at him for a long moment. At the man who had noticed the color of her bruising and offered a property manager in the same week and had been watching her flower deliveries for 4 months with the specific attentiveness of someone who had decided, without stating it, to be aware of whether she was all right. Why? Holding her gaze. Because you asked me that last Tuesday, and I gave you half an answer. The full answer is, he paused, in the specific way of someone choosing precision. The full answer is that I have been watching you work for 4 months and I respect what you've built and I respect how you do the work. And I noticed last Tuesday that something was wrong and I could do something about one part of it, and I did not see a reason not to. The boardroom was very quiet. The ranunculus were in the south light, exactly right. The property manager. What's his name? Something settled in Damien Cross's expression. Felix. He moved toward the door. I'll send you his number today. Back to the flowers. Left for his next meeting. The ranunculus stood in the south light. Outside, the Tuesday city continued. Inside, quietly and without announcement, something had begun. Felix found her an apartment in 2 weeks. 3rd floor, east-facing, the kind of building that had been there long enough to have real walls rather than partition-style construction. A lease that could start immediately. A landlord Felix described as reliable and uninterested in his tenants' personal histories. The apartment taken. On the Friday she signed the lease, she brought the Harlow Tower delivery herself, which she always did, and went to the executive floor and arranged the bi-weekly order and was putting the last stems in place when Damien appeared in the boardroom doorway. Good news. I signed the lease. The specific nod. Thank you. She kept arranging. For Felix. You did the work. Felix just moved fast. The flowers were arranged in the southern light. The one she had been making better over the past 2 weeks as she learned exactly what the room did to color in the afternoon. The south light really is better. Near the arrangement. I know. I moved them for a reason. Looking at him. At a man who had moved a flower arrangement to give her better light and found her a property manager and stood between her and a door on a Tuesday morning because he had seen 3 to 4 day old bruising on her wrist and had decided, without being asked, to do something about what he could reach. Damien. Waiting. I open the shop at 9 on Saturdays. Quieter in the morning. If you ever wanted to see what the south light does to ranunculus in a proper setting. She held his gaze. No delivery, just the shop. A moment looking at her. What time does the morning quiet end? Around 11. When the Saturday customers arrive. I'll be there at 9. Things gathered. At the boardroom door she paused once more. The sleeve. Without turning around. I know you saw. I know you've been careful about it since. A pause. The carefulness mattered. More than I expected it to. Behind her, very still. A pause. Saturday. 9 o'clock. To the elevator. The drive to the Anderson building. 16 white peonies in a lobby that faced north and did not think about ranunculus or south light or property managers. She thought about a man standing in a lobby at 7:40 in the morning who had seen the scars and the bruises and the 4 days of holding herself together and had not asked her to explain a single one of them. Just stepped between her and the door. 4 days of managing, handling, keeping everything moving forward so she would not have to stop. Still managing. But something had shifted in the weight of it. Because someone had seen what she was carrying. Not history. Not the scars. Not the story she was not ready to tell. Just her. Carrying it. And had decided, without being asked, to make certain things a little easier to carry. That was the whole of what had changed. It was, she understood on the drive back to the shop, enough. It was more than enough. It was the first time in a very long time that anything had been. No pity. Not that you are okay that requires you to say yes I'm fine. Saturday arrived clear and cool, the kind of early morning that belonged entirely to itself before the city claimed it. Iris opened Iris Bloom at 8:45, 15 minutes early, which she told herself was habit and not preparation. She set the stems she had pulled from the cooler the night before into their buckets, adjusted the arrangements in the front window, made herself a cup of tea she was not going to finish, and stood at her workbench at 9 o'clock exactly. Damien Cross walked through the door at 9 o'clock exactly. He was in different clothes than she had seen him in before, not a suit, not the executive floor version of himself, simply a man on a Saturday morning, which turned out to look like him with all the professional architecture removed. She registered this and looked back at her workbench. South-facing window, looking around the shop. You don't have one. East-facing. Better for mornings. She gestured. The display window catches it from 7 until about 10. After that it shifts. To the workbench, looking at what she was doing, the weekly prep, conditioning stems, the specific work of a florist's Saturday morning that most people never saw because it happened before the shop looked like a shop. Can I watch? You can help if you want. Nothing complicated about this part. Around to her side of the bench. The conditioning process, what it did, why it mattered, how you could tell which stems needed it more than others. He listened the way he always listened, with his whole attention rather than the performance of attention. He asked 2 questions, both precise, both coming from having understood what she had said and extending it. They worked in the early Saturday quiet for 20 minutes. At some point, without planning to, I've been doing this since I was 17. My grandmother had a garden. She taught me that the way you treated plants when nobody was watching was the indicator of everything else about how you lived. At the end of the bench, conditioning a stem the way she had shown him. Is that true? She thought so. I've come to think she was right. Your grandmother sounds like someone worth knowing. She died 6 years ago. She would have liked you. Looking up. Back to her work. She valued people who paid attention to things. She would have approved. The shop held that for a moment, the east light coming through the display window, the buckets of conditioned stems, the specific Saturday quiet of a space that belonged to her. Iris. Waiting. I'm gonna say something to tell me if it's too much. Say it. I have been thinking about Tuesday mornings since November. Not the deliveries. Tuesday mornings as the thing I was aware of approaching every week. As something I was looking forward to. A pause. I want you to know that predates the lobby. That predates seeing anything I wasn't supposed to see. This is not, he stopped. I don't want you to think this comes from that. The stem set down. Across the workbench at the man who had moved flower arrangements for better light and found property managers and stopped her in lobbies and was now standing in her shop on a Saturday morning saying this with the specific care of someone who had decided that clarity mattered more than comfort. November. Yes. That's 4 months before the lobby. Yes. Tuesday mornings. The lobby nod that had been, she now understood, something other than professional efficiency. A man who had been paying attention to the specific quality of a Tuesday morning for 4 months and had not acted on it until a sleeve rode up on a door handle and changed what was possible to ignore. The flowers. In the boardroom. The south light. Holding her gaze. You moved them in January. That was 2 months before the lobby. Yes. For the light. For the light. And because I had been watching you arrange them in the corridor for 3 months and I understood that you knew exactly what each space did to color and texture, and the southern light was better and I wanted you to have it. Looking at him. A shop on Alderton Street. Built from savings and a dream and her grandmother's belief that how you treated plants when nobody was watching was the indicator of everything else. The specific quality of being known not through what you said but through what you did, the arrangements, the conditioning, the east light at 9 in the morning. Paying attention the way she paid attention. That was either the best thing or the most dangerous thing. She had thought this before. She was beginning to understand which one it was. Stay for the morning. The customers come at 11. You can see what the shop looks like when it's actually running. Something moved through his expression. The specific shift she had come to recognize. The one that arrived when he received something he had not allowed himself to expect. Yes, I'd like that. Back to the stems. He stayed at the bench, working beside her, in the east morning light of a Saturday shop on Alderton Street. The city arrived around them, ordinary and unhurried. Inside, quietly and without announcement. Something that had been building since November finally had a room to be in. Glad she had opened the door. She intended to keep it open. The customers came at 11, as she had said. Damien stepped back when they arrived, not out of the shop, simply to the side. The specific courtesy of a man who understood that this was her space and her Saturday and the customers were her people. He watched her work. Different from them. Not a different person, the same iris, the same precision, the same quality of attention. But expanded. She knew their names. She knew what they had bought before and why. She knew the woman who always came in for her mother's birthday arrangement and needed something in particular lavender because her mother had a lavender garden once. She knew the man who came in every 2 weeks for a simple bouquet for his wife and who always looked slightly unsure about what to choose and who she always helped with the same patient specificity. Damien watched all of it. At 11:45 there was a brief quiet moment between customers. He came back to the workbench where she was doing quick order prep. You know all of them. Most of them. The regulars. You know what their flowers are for. You learn. I kept working. When someone comes in every 2 weeks for the same thing, you pay attention to what that thing is and what it means. That's what you do. In the shop, in the deliveries. You learn what things are for and you give them the right conditions. It's the job. It's more than the job. The way you described your grandmother about how you treat plants when nobody's watching. You do that with people too. Kept working, right? She had learned, over years of working with flowers, that the care you brought to things that could not advocate for themselves was the truest expression of who you were. The plant on the east windowsill needed slightly less water than its neighbor. The arrangement moved to the south light. The customer who needed lavender because her mother had a garden once. Not once considered whether anyone had done the same for her. Thinking about it now. Damien. Looking at her. Tuesday. I'll be here. She held his gaze. At the tower. Same time. Same delivery. A pause. But I'll come up to the executive floor for the arrangement myself. I usually leave it at the desk. What she was offering was not a declaration. Not a rush. Simply a Tuesday that was slightly different from the previous Tuesdays. A Tuesday where she came upstairs instead of leaving the arrangement at the desk. Tuesday. 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. A customer came through the door. She turned to greet them. He watched her for a moment, the florist on Alderton Street in her own shop on a Saturday morning, doing her work with the specific love of someone who had chosen it completely and meant it entirely. Paying attention since November. Intending to keep paying attention. Tuesday was 4 days away. I'm already looking forward to it. He left the shop at 12:15. When the Saturday morning rush had fully arrived and the shop was filled with the specific life of a place that belonged to someone and showed it. On Alderton Street, he paused outside the window. The east light was doing something particular at this angle and this hour, catching the display arrangements through the glass in a way that made the whole front of the shop look like something worth stopping for. She had been doing this since she was 17. Built it herself. Some things, when they are given the right conditions, become exactly what they were always supposed to be. He walked to his car. Tuesday was 4 days away. He was already looking forward to it.